All right, so we'll just take 2 minutes for everyone to stream in. Nice to have everyone here at a different time. Usually we do this on Thursdays, but we're having this on Tuesday today and at 5:30. Hopefully you've all had a nice day and you're all excited to have interesting conversations today in the evening on a very important topic. This is also streaming live on our Facebook page, the Naukri Hiring Suite page, of course. All right, so we just give it a minute. We'll give it a minute for everyone to continue to stream into the call, and then I'll do the introductions. For those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Prishan Sharma, and I'm sort of the guy who has the tough task of not being the authority on anything, but is tasked with ensuring that the time and everything is maintained. So if at all your questions go unanswered, I'm the guy to blame, not the panelist. All right, so please do sort of stay for as long as you can, right? We'll just give it another minute and we'll kick it off sharp at about 5:30, 5:31. By the way, to all 60 plus who've already got here, 1 minute ahead of time, I really appreciate that. And we really do appreciate, everyone maintaining their punctuality for such a webinar, because that's something that we'll be doing for you as well. I promise you, 6:30 means 6:30. We'll wrap up by then, and we won't eat into any of your evening further. All right. Right. So it's 5:30, and we've almost got 70 folks now. So I think while everyone will continue to join in, at least it's the right time for me to at least start with the introductions and get this show on the road. All right. Firstly, thank you so much to everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to host all of you. In case any of you have any questions hearing me, if my voice isn't audible enough, please feel free to drop me a message in the chat box. I'll keep an eye on it. Questions for the panelists, everything we'll do in the chat box. Right? But firstly, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 4th edition of the All Things Silent webinar series by Naukri Hiring Suite. Naukri Hiring Suite offers a bouquet of new age solutions from brands like Naukri, IIMJobs, Hirist, First Naukri, eHire, and RMS for all your recruitment needs. My name is Prishan Sharma, and I'm a member of the Naukri Hiring Suite marketing team. And we're super happy to have you join us on this Tuesday evening, right on time. I keep saying this, you being on time means a lot to us. Thank you so much for, spending your Tuesday evening with us. We sincerely hope that, you're staying safe and taking all necessary precautions in these pandemic times. I know things are getting better. Everything's, I hope everyone's safe. But let's just keep taking as many precautions as we can, right? The aim of the All Things Silent webinar series is to bring together the HR fraternity, everyone on this call, the panelists, the audience, everyone, and promote an environment of mutual growth. And the objective is to inspire the HR professionals to develop as leaders by learning from some of the best experiences of industry stalwarts. It's a pleasure to have two esteemed panelists and friends from the HR world today. But before I bring them in and talk about the topic a little bit, I'm just going to quickly sort of give you a few pointers to keep in mind through this 1-hour webinar that we're hosting today. We're starting at 5:30 p.m. sharp, and we will be ending by 6:30 p.m. sharp. We were lucky to receive a lot of questions, through the registrations. Everyone who's registered first, of course, there was a question box available there. So everyone that's shared those questions, we organized them into a structure, and we will sort of follow that initially. But don't worry at all, because that being said, we'll be doing live polls. We'll be doing a lot of engaging activities during, during the entire webinar. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, and I will also take those questions towards the end and through the middle as well, if it's related to what we're discussing in the moment. So please keep, asking your questions in the Q&A box available there. The topic for today is one that, I think it's safe to say that we're all still learning about it in the Indian ecosystem, right? It's what we're talking about here is mental health, and mental health hasn't always been talked about, very, very glowingly, or it hasn't been on the top of everyone's priority list for, all through all these years within the Indian ecosystem and especially corporate, right? And what we're talking about here is mental health from awareness to action. So we want to sort of capture as much of the gamut as possible within this 1 hour. Our two senior leaders who graciously accepted our invitation for this discussion, and it's a very important discussion for us, are Ms. Geetanjali Wheeler. She's a seasoned L&D professional. She's extremely passionate, about building a culture that promotes learning, agility across all levels in the organization. With more than 15 years, 17 years of experience, she's worked in varied verticals like telecom, airline, e-commerce, and she's led global as well as national roles. She was extremely instrumental in winning a prestigious award from the Indian Society for Training and Development for Innovative Training Practices as well. She's someone who currently, she leads the L&D for a global financial services group in India. Previously, she worked with with one of India's largest telecom companies as well. Thank you so much for being here, Geetanjali, and look forward to a lot of conversations with you. Up next, we also have Mr. Sarabjeet Singh Gill. He's the Associate Director in HR and Talent Acquisition at CloudMoyo. Sarab is, and I call him Sarab because that's something that, because I've known him for the longest time now. He's someone who's extremely active within the HR network circuit. He's a leading HR professional with more than a decade's experience. He's worked as an architect for people, processes, systems, and culture on complex business solutions and problems. He's always achieved exceptional results because eventually his results are what matters. His areas, of expertise vary from business partner HR transformation, managing remote and hybrid workforce, talent management, performance management, as well as HR systems and employee engagement. Both of these panelists are award-winning panelists. They won awards across the gamut, and I don't even need to name all the awards. The awards I'm talking about. They're in every list. They make every list every year. And we're really, really excited to have the both of them here, for this conversation. As always, I think the first thing that we will do is one of Naukri Hiring Suite's own thing, where we always start with a rapid fire kickstart. And I'll start with Geetanjali first. Both the panelists, are requested to effectively share one personal positive and one professional positive that's come your way via the pandemic. I mean, I know it's been tough times for everyone. Not everyone's had the opportunity to smile about it. But what we're trying to do here is to sort of give you a glimpse into how their pandemic has been as well, right? So, Geetanjali, one personal positive and one professional positive that's come your way due to the pandemic. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Prashant, and it's really lovely to be here. And thank you to all the listeners who've tuned in as well for such an important topic. And I really feel that this topic is going to remain in vogue for a very long time. Now, when you ask me that question on one personal positive and one professional positive, I think my answer to that is going to be integrating both of these and saying that hybrid working, I think, is the biggest positive for me post-COVID. And the really bringing of these two worlds together for me is important because, one, it allows me to feel empowered, make the right choice that needs my work attention or my family or my health or my own space. And if I just reflect, I don't think an acceptability to this magnitude could have been possible pre-COVID. So look at the digital transformation. We made this lovely PowerPoint presentations on how digitally transformed we would be as an organization in 2 years and see where we are. So I think hybrid working is going to be my response to you.
Fantastic. I think I completely agree, and I'm pretty sure so it's close to 150 now. So all 150 of you would agree as well on that, right? Sarab, I'm going to come to you next. One personal positive and one professional positive, or a merged positive, like Geetanjali shared. What would you go for?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Prashant, for having me today. It's a glad to have a co-panelist like Geetanjali out there and a lovely audience of 150 plus size. So thank you guys for making it up at 5:30. So probably this time works well, Prashant, for the future webinars as well. So I think you got the right pulse in terms of the timing. So glad. I'll start with probably a meme which was pretty much viral during the pandemic that can we uninstall 2020? This version has a virus in it. Right. I'm sure, all of you must have received this viral message, through WhatsApp or, any other channel, but, pretty sure all of us knew about it, that it's going to last for longer. And with countries and cities getting into lockdown, COVID-19 has made communities stay away from each other for survival, right? But we are a race, who is known for surviving best of the odds, right? So on the personal front, to answer your question, I say, to all new parents like me, who have got kids with less than 5 years of age, I think COVID brought, blessing in disguise. And for families and relationships, this has done wonders, as you get to see and be with your real family, which you mostly don't experience at all in your life, because you end up making, or you end up, working for your life rather than living your life, right? Of course, there are good and bad surprises for some, but at least this has brought the true families together. I'll say, as part of the positive, on the positive front. On the professional front, it's kind of same response. I'll say I echo with what Geetanjali said, and I'll say that a new wave of tools and software enabling everyone where you work from anywhere. Remote working turning mainstream, which has helped a lot of individuals to stay local but work global. I think this is something which is on a professional side, I'll say a positive takeaway. Wherever people had a lot of apprehensions in their mind, including CEOs or CXOs, that probably my team cannot work remote, has been pushed to this environment without any choice, right? And now working successfully for almost 18 months plus in most of the industries. I think this is a given fact that humans can do anything when it comes to them, right? So I'll probably take a pause on that. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think I completely agree with the both of you. And okay, so I'm seeing a few raised hands, guys. You can actually send me a message in the chat as well, in case so that I know why you've raised the hands as well, right? So that'll be easier. But I mean, so because you all are raising hands, I think it's the right time to sort of get this engaged audience their first poll. And I think the first poll is about to come up on your screens very, very shortly. The poll is a simple one. Please, right. So do you have an existing process for mental health wellness at your organization? This is a very simple question. And, all right. So everyone's participating. Yes, no, work in progress. All right. So I think we're seeing the results. And it is a result. All right. So the result tells me that the result actually tells me that, we're right to be doing this topic for the webinar, because as I think everyone can see, 62% say that no, there is no process for mental health wellness at your organization, right? To the 20% that say yes, all right, great. I mean, kudos to you guys if you've already got that established framework there. Work in progress, 20%, another 19%, great, good for you. But yeah, so 62% say that, 62% eventually say. Can you all see the results now?
Yeah.
Right. So 62% actually say that they don't have a process in place, and that's why we're doing this webinar. So great. I think you sort of helped me justify this topic for the evening, right? And that brings me to my first question. And please do keep in mind, mental health is a much larger topic, but we're going to try to look at it from an HR perspective, from what you guys do in your daily lives, and how important it is. What role do we play? And my first question to the both of you, and I'm going to pose it to the both of you one by one. I'll probably start with Sarab, and then I'll come to Geetanjali. Isn't necessarily the HR team's responsibility, and because a lot of things are specifically HR responsibilities, right? Or at least they're perceived to be. So is mental health wellness and there being a program for it specifically the HR responsibility? And based on your answer, how do we build capability to manage these situations? And I'm going to start with Sarab. Sarab, please go ahead.
Sure. I think we as an HR end up taking a lot on our shoulders, I'll say, which we should not. It's not a responsibility of HR alone at all. Okay. It's a responsibility of each one of us in the organization who is playing that role to ensure that mental health has been taken care, right? Because we are talking about humans, right? We're not talking about any kind of process or any kind of other aspects here. We're talking about dealing with humans, right? And when it comes to mental health, and with the kind of stats that we look at, globally and in India also, right? I recently read a report in India which talks about that our 17% of the population, which is pretty high. It's actually like one country, outside of India, right? which is kind of impacted with depression and anxiety and mental stress, right? So I think this needs to be in the charter of HR for sure, to drive and be on the driver's seat to execute the program. Okay. And with the uncertainty and constantly changing impact of COVID-19 on employees, right, the role of the people professionals requires expansion into even broader collection of responsibilities, right? And this includes, a focus on behavioral health of individuals, right? As people professionals, we must guide our organization to be transparent, flexible, and resilient in meeting all employees' needs, right? Our comfort level includes optimizing operations for better workflows and performance, but we also maintain focus on the implications of behavioral health and the gamut of feelings affecting employees at all levels of the organization, right? So I think acknowledging and normalizing these feelings as a genuine and authentic HR leader helps move the responsibility to be shared with everyone across the panel, right? And this will help us, create an environment, create a group, which is kind of, stress-free, where, you already have a lot of stress back at home because, now your personal and professional life is kind of blurred, right? It's not only individual working for, it's not like me working for CloudMoyo, right? It's like my entire family working for CloudMoyo nowadays, right? From last 18 months, because they are supporting me in the background to ensure that, I get a quiet space to execute my activities. They're supporting me in the background to ensure that, if there is a call in the midnight, I take that up, by ensuring that my kid is not kind of, woke up in between middle of the night and so on. So it's the entire family who's working in the background. And I think, to ease out on any individual stress, it's important that, we focus on the implications of mental health and ensure that employees are not burnt out. So there are many best practices like, giving, forced time offs, which we have seen as a trend in recent past 6 months, right? Most of the trend setters have done that, like, doing a time off of, forced time off of at least a week or, 2 weeks of time frame, which has helped the organizations and employees to reboot themselves, because everybody was pretty much, working for almost, 2 to 3 extra hours every day in this pandemic situation, right? Everybody was stressed about, deliverables. Everybody wanted to go that extra mile for their end customers, okay, to achieve the business goals and so on, right? Because there was different permutations, combinations which were working in the background, right? So giving a forced time off probably could be one of the options which, people in the audience can try out if they haven't tried something like this. Giving options like, wellness allowances, okay, that's something which is, again, we have done in all the organizations that have worked, okay, which is kind of, enabling that mental agenda, or, the mental health or employee wellness agenda, to the employees on the ground, by ensuring that, people do make those purchases, like if you want to, buy a bicycle, go ahead and get it reimbursed with some sort of allowance. If you want to buy a trampoline, which will ease out your stress, do that, okay, and so on, right? So offering some sort of, wellness allowance as part of the compensation and benefit program, and giving probably forced time offs will be, some of the, experiences that I'll say, can be plugged in to ensure that, mental health is taken care. Yeah.
Great. I think I'll come to Geetanjali, and specifically with the second part of the question as well, because because what I'm trying to understand is, and I mean, we heard about some great best practices right now from Sarab, right? But how do we build the capability, within the HR professionals in the organization, and so how do we ensure we're able to at least handle these situations? Because obviously not everyone is a mental health professional, right? I mean, a lot of these things are based on professional conversations. So Geetanjali, what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I think so many elements that Sarab spoke about, I can so strongly relate to them. And I think the capability question of yours is also very much related to whose responsibility do we assume that mental wellness is. Now, if you just go back to basics and see, mental wellness impacts how we perform at work. How we perform at work impacts our team's performance. Our team's performance impacts our department or function's performance, and that impacts the organization's performance. So if you see, the connection is so strong, an individual can indeed have that domino effect, right? So For me, it is everyone's responsibility. And I completely agree with Sarab over there. It can't be just HR's responsibility alone. And that responsibility actually starts from us. So therefore, the self really comes over there. From a capability point of view as well, right? See, that capability will not be formed if it is not sitting in the CEO's agenda. It has to be a part of the CEO's people's agenda. Employees, leaders who survive crisis, they build resilient organizations. HR, from a well-being point of view, yes, is at the core, is the anchor. But we must not forget that the reason for focusing on mental wellness is not just the pandemic, whether it's lack of motivation, whether it's no sense of belongingness at workplace, absence of psychological safety, absence of employee engagement. These things can also have an impact. So from a capability point of view, there's a lot of things that needs to be done, starting with trainings or sensitizing managers or individuals how to handle it is really the basic and the first step for me. You really have to focus a lot on reminders, making it really a part of the agenda, because if you're measuring something, it's improved, right? So what gets measured gets improved as well. And that there's a very interesting question in the chat box as well, that how do we motivate employees if there is no financial aspect to it, right? So maybe the allowances and all, yeah, some organizations, good progressive organizations are doing it, but then maybe not everybody can go ahead and make an arrangement like that as well. But there is still a lot that can be done at individual level, at team level. I have seen organizations where employee network groups, these are groups led by employees, focusing on certain agendas. There's a lot of things that can be possible. People coming and brainstorming together, making things possible, sharing with each other. So you can get creative in that as well, because at the end of it, if we have good mental well-being, then that maximizes our potential, makes us resilient, and helps us build fulfilling relationships, right, at work and even personally.
I'd like to add to what Geetanjali said, Prashant. I think she has set the right context in terms of the capability out there. And, to one of the chat questions which she has mentioned, right? So, if your budget allows, go for it. If it doesn't, you need to be really creative, okay? But I think, the one fundamental reason behind, this mental awareness is something which is needed, okay? Reason being that, people are missing out on the social interaction nowadays, right? People are kind of, isolated in their own, shells or their homes, right? And they hardly interact with anyone, right? It could be because of a sense of a fear, because of, small kids at home, or, some elderly people at home and so on, right? Or, different challenges altogether, right, to put in there. But I think the prima facie, the main issue behind any kind of mental not being well-being in terms of the mental health, I think it's more to do towards we're not able to express, we're not able to interact with others, right? That's what we see as a trend over by and large, right? It's not because of the pandemic, but before pandemic results also wherever there are isolations, wherever people are not able to interact much, you will have more of anxiety feelings, you will have more of mental stress and so on, because you're not emptying yourself, right? So I think creating those social interactions as part of the avenues within the organizations is very important. A couple of them could be you can start with the virtual coffee breaks within the project teams, or you can start with virtual coffee sessions with HR as an HR leaders out there, and try to gauge the health of or the pulse of the employees out there, that what they are feeling, and address their issues there and then. Or there could be things like leveraging the technology. Like everybody has pretty much all the collaboration tools nowadays as part of one of the tools or resources available within any organization. It could be MS Teams, it could be Zoom or Google Meet or so on, right? So create those channels where people can just go and talk about water cooler conversations which they were
Absolutely.
doing.
I mean, so largely what you're talking about in terms of the water cooler conversations, I think another great best practices that actually came to us as through one of our previous webinars was where Smriti Handa actually spoke about the fact that the original timings on your calendars are 30 minutes, right? So 30 minutes and 1 hour and things like that. They said that company-wide, what they did was they ensured that those were 25 minutes. So the last 5 minutes, the people involved in the meeting, if they wanted 5 minutes to themselves, that was fine. Otherwise, for 5 minutes, they would always have to, I mean, they were more than happy to have conversations about anything else, but they would not be discussing those, that work. Of course, it's a self-driven, exercise, but it is something that, and what I think what Geetanjali and Sarab have already spoken about are certain best practices that are employable. But don't worry, Ishita, if there'll be more answers. I understand what I can see from your responses that you're trying your best, but don't worry, we'll come up with more throughout this call. But in the meantime, I'll quickly move on to my next question, because I want to sort of take as many questions as possible. Sarab, the next question is to you, and it's about a reverse situation actually. A lot of times people may not think about this, but do you think while hiring and attracting the best talent, would mental health frameworks and perks and benefits come into play a lot more in the coming time? Do you think an organization not having a mental health well-being framework, within their structure, would actually start being a big cross for from an employer branding perspective?
I think yes, especially from the post-pandemic scenario where people were kind of stressed a lot about a lot of situations happening because of their personal life events and professional life events because of job cutting and so on. I think providing a well-being at organization is kind of one of the key differentiators which will be there, right? So what differentiator does your organization tout, right, when trying to recruit or retain a top talent, both, right? So a low-cost healthcare benefit, or you can talk about culture, you can talk about unlimited time off. But what about your wellness programs, right? I think people have already realized that there is enough burnt out that they have been going through, and they need some organizations who actually invest in employees' wellness, right? And any organization which has their wellness program as part of their key agenda, I think they have one of the clear differentiator in terms of attracting the talent there and there, right? So because people want to understand that if there is a situation back at home, right, if I have to open up and share that openly with my manager or with my leadership team, can I have that kind of confidence to talk about that I've got some situation back at home and I need probably wellness leave, or probably I need a time off from my schedule, right? So if you're creating that as part of the agenda in terms of your own approach, I think people who invest in health, and I think all the more in last 1.5 years we see a lot of people investing a lot in health back at home, will definitely appreciate if you have some sort of wellness programs crafted for them as part of the key differentiator, right? And similarly for the retention also, I think it works well because you focus on their health and you focus on their family's health also. So it's not only about employees, but if as part of your wellness agenda, if you can bring up the entire family in totality as part of executing the program, I think that will go for a long mile in terms of retaining those employees. And there could be a different set of things which you can do as part of the wellness programs, and we can talk more about it as and when we progress in our discussion.
Yeah, got it. I think perfect. I think so. Another important point that you did mention there is the focus on being a differentiator when it comes to your talent attraction strategy, right? And so 60% of our audience today is actually currently missing out on that big checkbox, that a candidate might be looking at. So that's something to consider. I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding attrition and a lot of those things, and that actually brings me back to my next question. Nicely pieced together, and it's a question I'm going to ask Geetanjali. And it goes back to something that Geetanjali actually said and shared in her first answer, where she spoke about sensitivity training for managers and things like that. I think a lot of times we've heard that people don't leave organizations, they leave their managers, right? So my question to you, Geetanjali, is that what are obvious signs to be mindful of, and could the initial steps be handled at a managerial level across the teams using sensitivity training and standardization? Is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, see, if you go back to mental health problems again, right? Is it something that happens to only specific people? The answer is no. It can happen to the best of us, and it is completely all right. We are different, and therefore the issues also impact us differently. And the triggers of these issues are never single fold, right? It could be anywhere. It could be at your work, it could be at your home, or a combination of day. And I love the saying that Rome was not built in a day. Now, with that, if you are mindful of those early triggers and signs, help is absolutely possible. And these could be just isolated small incidents, right? Being withdrawn or being extremely low, taking a lot of time off, or showing a dip in performance, getting frustrated easily, someone saying, you don't seem yourself nowadays, is everything okay? Now, these are signs that help you to have those early conversations. Now, if to answer your question, can it be handled at some level with managerial training and sensitivity and awareness? Absolutely, yes. See, because it's about our attitude, it's about creating awareness, it's about developing those skills of dealing with them. So, training definitely can be a starting point, but we can't be looking at things in only isolation. For example, only doing the trainings, or only having wellness programs, or only having leadership connect sessions. All of these have to tie in and blend in together. So, it's like ring fencing, right? I mean, you really have to bring all of these parts together so that they work like a machinery, because even if one component of that is not working, it's going to break down. Then you will feel probably the trainings are not working, the wellness sessions are not working, the wellness leaves are not working, or the benefits are not working. So it's really about getting them in balance and perfect play. The other thing that I'd like to highlight is timing is very critical, right? So if we are really mindful and aware and we bring those conversations up, then that is better. Managers are expected to be compassionate, but we also have to be compassionate towards the managers. We have to also understand that they are also employees and human beings. So how do we empower and equip them? Whether that is giving them more tools and resources that helps them to assess themselves and therefore their teams as well, whether you give them insights into perspectives, or even time off, right? I mean, leading by example as well. And again, if I think about this, I think there are other things that as people managers also we can encourage them to do. First, I think we should encourage our people managers to talk about their own vulnerabilities, talk about how are they taking care of their wellness as well. What is it that they are doing? What are the challenges that they are facing? Because when you do that and your team starts sharing with each other as well, there is a lot of peer learning and support that you are creating as a part of that network and that sharing. Stay connected and don't make your check-ins only about to-do actions and performance conversations. Just a simple call for "Are you okay?" And we did have that focus also just a few days ago. Make that more of a conversation. Just find out what is happening in other person's life. And being an introvert myself, I'd like to share this with all of the participants, is that give time, because there are certain people who require time to develop that relationship and trust. And if you follow that as a ritual, it will come about, and there will be a time where you will know the person enough to understand that there is something wrong. And our life is not binary, right? It's an intersection of so many different elements, and we spoke about this earlier as well. It could be at work, it could be with friends, family, or a combination of these things as well. Now, if, let's say, for example, again an example, because we spoke about how can organizations provide flexibility to individuals so that they can manage a bit of pressure as well. It should not lead to burnout as well. The rigma role that managers fall in is that if I give flexibility to one who's going to do the work, now, that's where your cohesive team comes into the picture. Your teams have to be strongly knit together, understand how to support each other. Then these flexibility and all of these things are possible. Otherwise, again, like a not well-oiled machinery, if one component is not working, it is not going to work. And finally, allow team managers to focus on smaller achievements. A lot of times, our recognition practices in the organizations are only dependent on big things, so certificates or big awards, or employee of the month, or this of the month, or that of the quarter. So these are those big awards, right? But that does not mean that the recognition practices or supporting each other cannot exist without the non-financial bit. And again, I'm coming to that question that was raised earlier. So I think it's a package of this that is going to work, and not just things in isolation.
Great. I think you sort of touched upon a lot of things, whether it's the regularity of recognition, whether it's the ensuring that if we're depending on managers, let's give them the power as well to sort of feel that they're taking on more work and things like that. When you spoke about vulnerability, I think that will instill a higher level of empathy as well, right? Across the team and management. So I think great. I think some wonderful pointers there. But I think what we've established in the last 20-25 minutes is that a lot of these conversations are necessary, are very, very necessary. But at some point, we will need to bring in a professional, right? And that's what the next poll is about to be, and it's about to come on your screen right now. The next poll, very specifically and simply talks about, has the pandemic pushed your organization into consulting and onboarding a professional? I don't mean you on your own managing everything and doing everything. Do you have a professional on board now? Someone, who does these calls, who does all these conversations, a mental health professional, whether it's a psychiatrist or, anyone who has experience in this field. We'll give it another 3-4 seconds because I think about 50-60% of you already participated. By the way, we've still got more than 170 people here. So thank you so much for staying strong with us. Right. I think we can share the results now. I think now let's take a look. Yes. So 72%. Can everyone see the result? Yeah. So 72% say that no, even the pandemic hasn't sort of pushed you into consulting and onboarding a professional. 3% already had it pre-pandemic. Again, kudos to you guys. I think that's a great and it's an important step. Everyone will have to eventually take it. So you're already ahead of everyone else because you've done it. To the 24%, better late than never. Congratulations, right? But yeah, again, so 60% had no framework of a mental health process within their organization, and 72% do not have, in a consulting capacity or an onboarded capacity, a mental health professional. So that's a very important aspect that we've again unearthed through this crowd, and I'm sure this sample represents a lot of the Indian corporate ecosystem as well. So I understand that, right? My next question, and it's going to be to both, and I'll start with Sarab first. If an employee is identified or diagnosed with either depression or extreme aggression, as an HR leader, and you've risen through the ranks yourself as well, right, Sarab? So you may have handled these situations on your own. What would you advise? Like if someone's going through depression and it's been diagnosed using a professional, what would you recommend? And if you had the power to make a policy around it, what would it be?
Yeah, I think one of the important best practices which we are following is offering a flexibility to that individual wherever we are aware about certain issues. Of course, we have got EAP programs lined up, which talks about having a professional at workplace where we keep confidentiality and everything in ensure that things are not been informed to everyone, but it's only the HR individual who is made aware about if there are any kind of issues like this. So whenever we get to know about any situations like this and where individual is comfortable revealing their identity through that EAP to the HR team out there, what we do is our first step is offer a flexibility to that individual in terms of doing some sort of work arrangement changes. Okay, be it if you want to take some time off, okay, do that. If you want to take a sabbatical for a pretty longer time, like 1 month to 3 months time, take that, invest in your health, and then come back full-fledged with high energy. Offering help, like we have tied up with a lot of insurance companies out there who help individuals to ensure that their cost for consulting is covered, because we know that consulting is pretty heavy, right, in India especially. So they don't really have to worry about the financial aspect of getting the treatment done, right? So supporting them in terms of the financial aspect, offering flexibility in terms of giving options, like you want to do a kind of a part-time job, do that, just work for 4 hours, rest of the hours probably invest in your health and so on. So giving all gamut of things to the individual out there as part of the support from our side, because having said whatever done, right, you have hired someone through a rigorous interview process, and you don't want to lose that individual at all, right, at any cost, especially in the current market, which is very hot and there's a talent war going on outside. we really want to go over and above and, above and beyond, basically, to ensure that we provide all the support which is needed for the individual as part of our wellness program and as part of our retention strategy, both. So this is some things which we do. At the same time, what we do is we sensitize the teams, based on the information which we get. We do not take out names, but we go ahead and take those scenarios in the teams and projects and talk about it, and we try to model some healthy behaviors. Okay, because don't just say you support mental health, right? Model it so that your team members feel they can prioritize self-care and set boundaries, right? One of the biggest issue, I think, for the entire stress is that people are still not able to set the routine for their day, right? They start early at 9, then they end their day by 10 or 11 in the night, or probably a little later than that if they have US and outside calls, right? So having a schedule which is kind of worked out with your respective people managers to ensure that you define your work schedule, okay, even if you are in a remote setup, right? Otherwise, you're just sitting on your machines, on your laptops, throughout the day, and there is no switching off from your work, right? Earlier, when we were in person in office, at least we used to move out of that office space, and there was a disconnect, at least for some time, at least for 2-3 hours. By the time you have your next calls plan in the evening. Now the disconnect psychologically it's not there, right? So one of the best practices which we advise people is that create a space in the home, and create that as a dedicated space, where you're gonna treat that space as your office, right? As your mini office, right? Because people end up hopping to different locations within house, right? And that creates that psychological impression that my entire house is kind of an office, right? And there is no psychological disconnect. We got this best practice from our EAP counselor, and I was happy to share that with the rest of the audience also. Because the moment you have that, planned, the moment you move out of your chair from that room, you know that you're kind of disconnected, and now your personal life starts, right? So these are some of the ways, in terms of the best practices. And secondly, there are multiple awareness sessions, there are multiple wellness sessions which we do as part of the mental well-being, which is like yoga sessions on regular basis to take care of the physical and mental health, because it's not only about mental health, it's also about physical health. Doing exercise like Zumba and so on pretty frequent cadence. Talking more about the physical posture and the sitting posture and the ergonomics, basically, because I think that is something which is screwed up for each and every one of us by sitting long working hours, and we do not really pay attention to the ergonomics, right? We just end up using just one screen, and just end up having a neck sprain or a back sprain and so on. So ensuring these things and creating awareness about it is something which is helping people out there. Yeah,
great. I think again. So just to clarify, you shared that the insight about creating a separate space came from the counselor, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I mean, you had a professional playing a role in designing a policy. So I think that's great. Kudos to you, Sarab, for that. Right. Geetanjali, I'm going to come to you next. And what's your take on how does one handle someone who's been diagnosed with this? Because in the first part we discussed awareness, we discussed empathy, we discussed about this. Now we're talking about actions. So because it is awareness to action. So what would you recommend when and I have a follow-up question to this as well, which will be to you as well, right? So please let me know what you think of it.
See, I think mental illness has to be treated more sensitively than physical illness. I think all of us agree about that one fact, right? And this is an incident that I'd like to share with all of you, which happened even pre-COVID times, right? And there's a colleague shared in confidence that she feels very low, very depressed, and she's seeing a counselor. And my immediate response to that was to take more time off and really focus on her well-being, and then therefore do XYZ steps. You get into that friendly conversation of do this, do that, whereas you're not an expert in the field any which way. But what surprised me is her response to that suggestion, that she said that I'd rather tell them that I have cancer and I'm seeking a treatment for that, rather than telling them that I'm seeing a counselor because I feel I am depressed. So I think stigma around it is such a big an issue, right? And I think from an HR point of view, because we're focusing on what can HR do over here, I think one of the things that we can do for the organization is really build awareness to help eliminate that stigma. Now, here in the scenario that you gave, the employee has probably come and told us that, I've been diagnosed with or I am depressed, and therefore what's the next steps. I 100% agree with Sarabjeet. The biggest thing that you can offer to that individual is flexibility of choice, the choice to manage work, and let's not treat it like a COVID isolation, so saying that, okay, this person needs to be isolated. Let that person make that natural choice of how much of interaction do they want to do, not do. That's what really matters. And I think to everything that Sarab said, and I'll not repeat that. I think the only thing that I'll probably add on is to say, managers, right? We spoke about the sensitivity training, and that is probably at a generic level to create that awareness. But let us assume that you are my manager and I come to you and I tell you that I am depressed, and this is the steps that I'm thinking about. You go to Sarab, who's the HR. But does a Prashant understand how to deal with a Geetanjali with a very specific situation as next steps? So I think we should also be focusing on empowering managers like you who have an actual case, because it is very different to understand it at an awareness level versus actually facilitating somebody's journey to recovery and then back to work, right? So it's a different perspective altogether.
Great. I think again, so I think we're talking about a lot of valid experiences and some great thoughts across the board. Just a quick disclaimer to the audience: I understand that all best practices may not be employable at every scale of organization, but one size never fits all. But you can try customized versions of everything that you're hearing, because they're not all to do with money, by the way. Most of what Sarab and Geetanjali are sharing are aspects that aren't dependent on money. Whether it's creating slots, whether it's creating a separate desk at home, whether it's getting a mental health professional on board, these are just necessary steps, right? Geetanjali, my next question to you is, an extension, and this is more from an introspective point of view as well. If you are the organization, what are aspects that the organization may be guilty of neglecting, which leads to mental health issues for employees?
See, organizations are a reflection of the society that we live in, right? And if I don't focus too much on what we did pre-COVID times, because I think the time is also so different, so we might as well focus on aspects that if the organizations ignore now or in the time to come can lead to the problem of mental health illness, right? The first thing that comes to my mind is, let us promise ourselves that we will not let things fall back. It took a pandemic for everybody to realize that mental health issues are real. Till that time, we were only focusing on the physical aspects of wellness. Now we've already reached a stage. We understand the impact to a certain level. Let us evolve in our mental wellness journey from here on. If we don't do that, we fall back, we will again reach the same stage, and then probably all of those things will still remain in the organization, follows to our society as well. So I don't think it can be isolated or organization from the society. It's really a reflection of each other. I think we should also clearly articulate what support is available from the organization. And as you very rightly said, not every organization is probably going to be getting a EAP partner, to perfectly seamlessly manage all of the experiences. But whatever little things that you're doing, whether those are resources, whether those are tools, or whether those are some buddy group sessions or some employee network groups or employee-led created groups, whatever is available, ensure that people are aware of it. The other thing that we do is we create all big things. It's good on presentation. We do a great launch, but we then forget about how will we sustain the awareness of this as people are moving teams or as people are joining the organization. How do you ensure that the information is, one, easily available and easily understood as well? I think we should also focus on doing more pulse surveys, and let's not make this like a performance appraisal done once in a year, right? And let us look at this more like probably, for the lack of word, maybe look at it as sales. And I'm saying sales because I think sales is one function where the leading indicators and the lagging indicators are so beautifully mapped, right? You will get to know whether you're going to achieve your quarterly targets or not. I'm just questioning and thinking and encouraging all of us to think, can we do similar things in the space of people as well, as far as all of these things are also concerned? And as far as leaders are concerned, right, and we spoke about talking about vulnerabilities, we should also encourage our leaders to come out in the open and talk about their own issues as well, because demonstrating resilience, demonstrating vulnerability is very, very inspirational. It will help you connect with individuals at different levels, and you'll be surprised to see how your stories can be relatable for so many people, right? And as one Harvard Business article that I had read, if you demonstrate authentic leadership, that will cultivate trust. If you have that trust, that means you are improving the employee engagement and productivity. And I think there were questions in the chat on productivity as well. Create that psychologically safe environment so that we can have more naturally free flow conversations, right? Because ultimately, I don't want to be judged as an employee only because I'm talking about my mental health issues, because I know that ultimately in the boardroom, what matters is perception. So I don't want to be living in that fear of being judged either, right? And that is only possible if you've created a psychologically safe environment.
Brilliant. I think fair points there. And I think one aspect that you actually spoke about, and we've been able to answer a lot of the questions that have been coming in the chat through our conversation. But one question that I would like to go back sort of came from Sugandha Nayak. So it says, how can we let business own the mental health champion agenda, right? Rather than an HR-led initiative. And the reason why I'm coming back to this is because this is one of the first things that you both mentioned together. And Sarab, I'm going to come to you first. For a crisp one-liner, two-liner answer on this. How do you get them on board? Because I believe a lot of our attendees might be struggling with that from a point of view, right? Because if 60% of them don't have those facilities, those frameworks in place, 70% don't have a mental health professional on board. How did you, for example, get your senior leadership on board? And then Geetanjali, same question to you after that.
I think hitting on the pulse directly, I think, which is iteration, right? So tell them that if you're not going to invest on this agenda, you will have a higher iteration. Okay, there is a report which has been kind of floating around in a lot of HR network groups, and I'm sure most of you guys must have already received it, which is by McKinsey, recently published in last month, on iteration, because there is a huge iteration which we see this year. So it talks about that 54% of employees leave because they don't feel valued by their managers, while 51% of employees leave because they don't feel a sense of belonging at work. And wellness agenda can create and take care of both these aspects all together. So I think invest heavily in people managers and push through the iteration that if you want to save your team out there, this is one of the norms which we have to agreed upon.
Great. I think so. Hit them where it hurts most, right? to sort of get what you want from them. I think that makes so much sense, and it's very practical also, right? You're asking questions about attrition in the chat, right? Why don't you ask those questions to your management directly? That this attrition is happening, and maybe having mental health frameworks could work. Geetanjali, what's your take on that?
I think I completely second that, and always show the relationship to business. I did mention this earlier as well. Individual impacts team impacts department or function, and the function impacts the organization. So we often say that it is not about the one person in the team, but yet it is about that one person in the team, because that is what will have that domino effect as well. So if you're able to establish that relationship and that link, it will work. Also, a caveat, I've been blessed to work with organizations that clearly sees the relationship. And I've also worked in an organization that does not see the relationship. So I can completely understand the pain as well when you are trying to make a point and nobody wants to listen to you. My only tip over there is have faith and keep investing and keep reinforcing in that, because you're absolutely right. You will open a door one day.
We've just had a question that's come in. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead. I think
we've just had one more question come in, which is, and I think this is also because I think I've been using the term a lot more. What would be the framework of mental health in a broad term? Like, what would be a framework from the point, and it's anonymous. You could have used your name also. I mean, there's no stress, right? So I think we're answering this live. I think, Sarab, would you like to take it? What would be a general framework from an HR point of view, within the organization? Some kind of standardization, or what would it be?
Yeah, I think just do not focus on mental whenever you're trying to bring some wellness or well-being framework out there. Do not focus just on one aspect, which is mental, right? Focus on all aspects, like physical, mental, spiritual, okay, and financial, because these are the four intrinsic human factors which adds to everything, and that is something which should be part of your wellness agenda as part of your planning, right? Because you need to tell people how they can earn more money, how they can save more money by through those financial tax planning sessions and so on. And there are multiple interventions that you can do which will release stress in individual's mind, because when it comes to finances, a lot of people get stressed that they're giving out a lot of money to the government out there and how they can save on that, right? Spiritually, I think because as humans, right, at the end, we have our own souls inside, right? So I think spiritual connection is very important. Okay, so have those sessions, through which you can have some sort of leaders out there, who talks more about spiritual connection, right? Because it's all about ikigai, right? I'm sure ikigai is probably a known word to everyone out there, but you need to find out your own ikigai, right? As it is part of your passion, right? If you help anybody in the organization to find that ikigai, I think that guy is not going to leave at any point of time, right? So let them follow their passion within the organization, along with whatever set of responsibilities are there. Try to manage them if possible. If not, then at least give them some space to work on their passions, right? Physical, encourage people to participate in virtual marathons, or probably cycling, or any other event which will enable any kind of challenges and create some sort of competition. Okay, and lastly, mental health, which we have already covered a lot in the last 45 minutes. So I think these four things needs to be as part of the agenda, as part of the framework.
Geetanjali?
Sarab has made some very excellent remarks. I think I'll share a tip, okay? And this is something that has worked for me. Again, coming to how do you get the leadership on board, right? If you look at making leaders, and you just have to get that first one, okay? So keep hunting and get that first one. Make that person your ambassador, your champion. And when you're sending out emails, or let's say invitations to your employees to come and attend sessions, many a times emails from a generic inbox, okay, or only coming from HR, okay, this is an HR session, those are the reactions. But when you get it sent out from the leaders, and the leaders are saying, why should I attend, and they come and attend along with the employees, then that stone begins to roll, okay? And then you will see that slowly things are beginning to change. So you have to really be at it. And that's, my heart goes out to all the people, the 72%, 62%. And I know it's a difficult path, but that's exactly why HR needs to be at the forefront, right? We have been called to the driver's seat over here, and we have a fantastic opportunity to make that difference and make that dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs says. So I'll just leave you with that.
Brilliant. I think we've had a wonderful hour, and I'm extremely happy to have such wonderful insights and takes. And also, by the way, I've been reading the chat as well. Some great questions, great points there. I think we were largely able to cover most of it. To everyone that's leaving, wait, I'm doing the conclusion, then you leave. So don't drop off unnecessarily right now. And because there's a feedback form as well that I'd love you to fill out towards the end, right? Firstly, thank you so much to the panelists. I think it's been such a pleasure to have you guys here. Wonderful insights, wonderful best practices on a very sensitive subject. I hope the attendees also appreciate the fact that it is a sensitive subject. So for them to share everything, thank you so much, Sarabjeet. Thank you so much, Geetanjali. It's wonderful to sort of connect with you over these conversations again. To all the attendees, it's been a wonderful hour. Thank you so much to everyone that signed up, to everyone that's sort of sent in their questions, to everyone that asked their questions. Please do fill out the feedback form, when you're dropping off, because it will help us come back bigger and better. It's, because we do this every month, and we want to do, this as big and as amazingly as possible. And once again, a massive thanks to everyone. And most importantly, the pandemic is still on. Please do take out as many precautions as possible. Keep drinking water. You've seen me drink at least 5 glasses of water during the webinar itself, right? So please do continue to drink water. Please ensure you're taking all the precautions, wear your masks, and just want to sort of appreciate all of you for doing this. Any closing thank yous from the panelists, sir?
Yeah, I'll just say stay physically distanced but socially connected, guys. Please stay
Yes,
safe.
exactly. Perfect. What a wonderful line. I'm going to use that next time. Geetanjali?
Just closing remark is have faith, stay there, and you will really make it. Thank you, Prashant, and thank you, Sarabjeet. It's really been lovely to hear your insights as well, and so many lovely questions. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much to everyone, to all 150 plus of you that stayed through the hour. Thank you so much. Yes, this too shall pass. Yes, Teresa shared that. Perfect. This too shall pass. The pandemic will. And Sarabjeet's given me the line that I will be signing off with from every webinar in future. Right. So perfect. So thank you so much. And if you'd like to connect with us, of course, you know our names. Please look us up and we'll see you next month. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. And it's Tuesday. You still have most of the week to go. So all the best for that.